Captain Sorlara stood on the bridge of the Areth, her eyes fixed on the flickering console screens. The deep hum of the ship's quantum scanner filled the air, steady and unending. She felt a strange tension tighten in her chest. All her life, she had studied the frontiers of space. She had charted silent nebulae and mapped glowing star clusters. But nothing had prepared her for what the scanner now revealed. A human battleship of unimaginable size drifting into view, in the lab beyond the bridge. Xenotech Officer Myrel hovered over a data terminal, her fingers dancing across holokeys. She felt her breath catch as the encrypted readings scrolled up. Whole resonance, power output, shield harmonic seach, metric far exceeded known values. The numbers should have been impossible, yet the console confirmed them again and again. Myrel's usually steady hands trembled. She glanced toward the glass wall separating her from the bridge, longing for comforting words. None came. On the bridge, Captain Sorlara summoned calm with a steady voice. "Report," she said. Her tone was firm, but her heart raced. The bridge crew shifted in their seats. None dared meet her gaze. Analyst Jaren cleared his throat. "Captain, the human battleship systems defy our definitions. Its energy core cycles faster than any fusion reactor we've measured. Force fields bend light around the hull. It appears nearly invisible until directly scanned." A heavy hush settled over the bridge. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Sala, the communications chief, leaned forward. "Their encryption is layered in at least 5 independent algorithms. We've never seen such complexity combined with total operational stability." Her words echoed softly. Stability amid unknown power felt like a death knell. When technology outstripped understanding, disaster often followed. Myrel closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Why would humans build such a ship?" She tapped the console again, running another decryption cycle. The progress bar crawled forward. In the pale glow of the terminal, she glimpsed a fleeting thought, curiosity. The human crew might be more cautious than the Veroni expected. A small hope flickered, but fear snuffed it out almost at once. Captain Sorlara left her seat and walked slowly to the observation window. The battleship lay almost motionless against the starfield. Its silhouette was simple, angular, yet elegant. No brutal spikes or jagged towers, just clean lines. It looked peaceful, almost friendly, and yet its silent power pressed upon her chest like the weight of a dead world. She placed a hand against the cold glass, as if it could hold back the unknown. Back in the lab, Myrel's screen finally unlocked the final layer of encryption. She gasped. The decrypted files revealed routine maintenance logs, power cycle reports, and personnel records. She saw crew manifests listing hundreds of humans, each with a name, rank, and home planet. There were images, humans clutching teacups, laughing, bathing plants in gentle light. It was normal life, laid bare in crisp data. The contrast shocked her. A sudden knock startled Myrel. It was Captain Sorlara. "Myrel," she said softly, "what have you learned?" Myrel turned to face her captain, eyes wide and uncertain. "Captain," she began, voice wavering, "they are not the monsters we feared. Their technology is beyond ours. Yes, but they are curious. They are careful. They record T-breaks as diligently as engine cycles." She paused, searching for words. "They do not hide behind fear." Sorlara felt a shiver run down her spine. She imagined those human faces, serene under starlight. She thought of her own people's history of caution and control. What had she expected? Monstrous warships blazing through the void. Instead, she found an invitation to learn. Hope and dread tangled in her mind like 2 threads of light. "Thank you." "Myrel," Sorlara said, her voice steady once more. She returned to the bridge and addressed her crew. "Prepare further scans, but maintain our distance. We'll not assume hostility. This battleship may be the key to new knowledge and new friendship." Her words carried both caution and wonder. As the Areth scanners probed deeper into the battleship's systems, Captain Sorlara allowed herself one small, hopeful thought. Perhaps this first encounter could mark the start of something extraordinary. For both species, And yet, she could not shake the memory of that silent power, humming just beyond understanding. What they had found was not a weapon, it was a mystery. And mysteries, she knew, could change the course of history. Asterisk, the lab aboard the Aureth glowed with pale blue light as Xenotech officer. Myril stared at the screens before her. Rows of numbers scrolled by, each one more baffling than the last. She had never seen energy readings so high, yet so stable. Her heart pounded. Around her, junior analysts tapped holokeys in silence, wide-eyed and tense. Every now and then someone would gasp or whisper, impossible, but the data would not lie. The human battleship systems defied every law of physics the Vroni knew. Myril took a steadying breath and called for analyst Jaren. He hurried over, his face drawn and pale. Together they examined the encryption layers the humans had built into their logs. 5 separate protocols, each more advanced than the last. Jaren's fingers shook as he ran a decryption sequence. When the progress bar stalled at 97%, he leaned back in his chair, sweat beading on his brow. "I've never seen code like this," he said softly. "It's alive." His words echoed in Myril's mind. Alive. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. In the next console bay, Technician Sarith tapped his datapad anxiously. He had charted the ship's structural harmonics and noticed something strange. The battleship's hull seemed to shift under. Different wavelengths of scan light. At one moment it looked like solid alloy. The next it seemed to flow like liquid. He swallowed hard and sent a brief report to the bridge. Every message he sent felt like sending a plea for help hand each. Reply only deepened the mystery. Captain Sorlara read Sarith's transmission in the soft glow of her command chair. She pressed her fingers to her temple, feeling a tight knot of worry. These revelations could mean the humans had weapons beyond imagining, or technologies meant for healing, exploration, or art. She would not jump to conclusions. Yet that same caution gnawed at her. What if she hesitated and missed a chance to learn, or worse, misread the situation and triggered conflict? The weight of possibility pressed on her mind like gravity. Back in the lab, Jaren finally broke through the last encryption. He gasped, stumbling backward as files unfurled on his screen. Maintenance schedules, crew manifests, even personal journals. The logs showed humans tending gardens, playing stringed instruments, and teaching children in zero-gravity classrooms. Myril stared at a grainy hollow snapshot of a human child hugging a robot helper. It was a simple scene, yet it felt powerful. Jaren's voice trembled. They record kindness as carefully as they record engine cycles. Myril felt tears prick her eyes. For so long, the Vroni had viewed unknown species as threats or resources. They studied warships, battle formations, and weapon yields. But here was a record of human gentleness, laid out in cold data. She wondered how such a powerful people could still treasure small acts of care. A spark of hope lit within her. Perhaps humans saw strength and empathy. Perhaps. They believed that technology and compassion could walk hand in hand. In the hush that followed, Myril summoned courage. She tapped a command to highlight key files and sent them to the bridge. "Captain," her message read, "you must see this." Within moments, Sala's console on the bridge blinked. Sala opened the files, and her eyes widened as images of human life filled the holoscreen. She glanced at Sorlara, voice soft but firm. "They are more than machines of war." And in that instant, Sorlara felt her resolve crystallize. She would meet these humans not as enemies, but as curious explorers. That evening, in the Aret's quiet corridors, Myril paused before a small observation port. Beyond the thick glass, the human battleship hovered like a silent sentinel. Its HULL pulsed faintly with energy. Myril pressed her hand to the port, imagining the lives held within. She thought of their laughter, their songs, their morning rituals with hot tea and soft light. A tear slipped down her cheek. She whispered to the empty corridor, "Thank you, humans. We will try to be worthy of your trust." And so, with data decrypted and hearts awakened, the Vroni prepared for the next step. No weapons would be raised. No threats would be issued. Instead, they chose curiosity. They would send a small delegation scientists, diplomats, and translators to the human battleship. Sorlara drafted her invitation with steady hands, careful words, and an open heart. The path ahead was unknown, but for the first time in Vroni history, they moved forward, not out of fear, but out of hope. Captain Sorlara watched as the small silver shuttle Trailblazer detached from the Areth's hull. Inside, Xenotech Officer Myrel, Communications Chief Sala, and Analyst Jaren settled into their seats. Each of them felt a mix of excitement and fear. The shuttle's engines hummed softly, carrying them toward the vast human battleship. None spoke. Their eyes met only to share silent hope. They knew this journey would shape their future and perhaps the future of two worlds. As the Trailblazer slipped through the dark emptiness, Myrel pressed her forehead against the cool window. She recalled the decrypted images of humans laughing over tea. She imagined their voices soft and kind. Her heart fluttered in her chest like a bird. Beside her, Jaren checked his datapad for final approach protocols. Sala adjusted the cum frequency, her fingers steady despite her racing pulse. Even in this small shuttle, each of them felt both fragile and brave. Moments later, the human battleship loomed before them, vast and silent as a sleeping giant. Its smooth hull reflected distant stars like scattered diamonds. Treasure-like windows glowed warmly, hinting at life within. The Trailblazer's docking. Clamps extended and latched onto a round airlock port. The sound of the clamps closing echoed softly through the cabin. Captain Sorlara drew in a steady breath, then gave the signal to proceed. The hatch hissed open. They stepped into a bright corridor painted in calming shades of white and blue. Soft lights glowed above, and the floor felt warm under their boots. A tall human officer in a crisp uniform greeted them with a gentle bow. His voice was low and welcoming. "Welcome aboard the HSS Pioneer. I am Commander Reyes." He offered each Vroni guest a clasp of his hand. Captain Sorlara felt the warmth of his palm and realized her fear was melting away. Commander Reyes led them down the corridor. Along the walls, small human children played with hovering robot helpers, their laughter ringing clear. Humans moved past with easy smiles, pausing to greet the Vroni with curious eyes. One human engineer stopped to explain the simple mechanics of a glowing power conduit and then stepped back to let them pass. Every gesture spoke of respect and gentle curiosity. The Vroni delegation felt as if they had entered a living garden of kindness. In the ship's central lounge, a long table held steaming pots of fragrant tea and plates of fresh fruit. The Vroni paused, astonished by the sight. Sala's eyes shone. She approached a steaming pot, inhaled the sweet scent, and then carefully poured a light amber liquid into a cup. She smiled as she tasted it. The warmth spread through her, comforting her nerves. Jaren tried a slice of fruit and closed his eyes at the burst of flavor. Even Captain Sorlara allowed herself a small smile. Myrel watched her team and felt tears prick her eyes. She thought of the data logs of human kindness recorded as diligently as engine hours. Now she saw it in motion, flowing like clear water among strangers. Her shoulders relaxed, and she bowed her head in gratitude. "Oh, thank you," she whispered, though no translator was needed. The humans at the table returned her bow with gentle nods, as if they had been waiting to share this moment. Captain Sorlara cleared her throat and stood. She addressed Commander Reyes with measured words. "Your hospitality honors us. We come with respect and hope." She felt the weight of her title as she spoke, yet the warmth in her own voice surprised her. Reyes nodded, his expression kind. "We are friends," he replied. "Let us learn from each other." In that simple exchange, barriers dissolved. Two species stood together beneath the same ceiling, unified by curiosity and respect. As the HSS Pioneer's soft lights reflected on their helmets, the Vroni delegation allowed themselves one hopeful thought, perhaps. This meeting would mark a new chapter of peace and discovery. They learned that strength need not be shown through weapons, but through open hands and open hearts. Outside, the stars shone on both ships, silent witnesses to this promise. And in that shared silence, Captain Sorlara felt a new resolve take root, one that would guide them toward tomorrow's adventures. Captain Sorlara stepped into the science wing of the HSS Pioneer, her boots echoing softly on the polished floor. Beside her, Myral's eyes shone with wonder as she took in the rows of glass chambers filled with strange, glowing plants. Each pod held a different species, collected from worlds across human space. Mist hovered in the air, and gentle hums came from unseen machines. Myral pressed her hand lightly against the transparent wall of one chamber, careful not to disturb the tiny seedlings inside. They grow life as if it were art, she breathed. Jaren moved toward a console showing holographic displays of star maps and research data. He tapped the panel, and a three-dimensional model of the Vroni home system appeared beside Earth and its neighboring planets. The two maps hovered side by side, connected by lines of light. Jaron leaned close, tracing the path that ships could take between their worlds. He thought of the long voyages ahead and felt hope bloom in his chest. "We could learn so much from each other," he whispered. And Sala placed a steady hand on his shoulder. A soft voice drew them onward. "This way, please." Commander Reyes led them into the medical bay, where gentle lights bathed the room in a warm glow. Along one wall, humans hovered above beds, scanning injured patients with handheld devices. A human doctor showed Myral how a small wand could close deep cuts and knit torn tissue in minutes. Myral watched as the device passed over a wound and saw flesh mend like clay pressed back into shape. She felt tears rise. "Such care," she murmured, as the doctor offered her a calm smile next. They entered a classroom where human children and young aliens sat together around floating desks. A human teacher guided them through lessons in star physics and bioengineering. On one screen, a child from a distant moon carefully manipulated virtual tools to assemble a mini habitat. The children laughed when a holographic plant sprouted, too large and gently overturned a desk. Sala crouched by the youngest student, a Vroni child far from home, and offered her a soft toy. The child's wide eyes lit up and she hugged the gift tightly. Sala felt her heart tremble at the simple joy. Captain Sorlara paused in a quiet alcove lined with memory tablets. Each tablet held a recording of human history from the first explorers on Mars to the unification of Earth's nations. Activated. One and saw images of humans of many colors and shapes working side by side to build a better world. One clip showed survivors helping each other after a great storm, hands joined in solidarity. Sorlara closed her eyes and let the memory wash over her. She thought of her own people's struggles and felt a wave of gratitude for this example of unity. Outside the science wing's window, the Vroni delegation watched a group of humans tending a floating garden under artificial sunlight. Flowers of bright blue and green lifted their petals, and small butterflies created in labs flitted among them. Jaren recorded the scene on his datapad. He imagined returning home with images of this living wonder. "Your people turned science into beauty," he said softly to Commander Reyes, whose face glowed with pride. Reyes led them back to the central lounge, where a transparent case held a single Vroni crystalline artifact the delegation had brought as a gift. Captain Sorlara carefully removed the crystal and placed it under the case's light. The gem pulsed with a gentle inner glow. Reyes thanked her, bowing his head, and invited everyone to watch. From a hidden panel, soft music began. A calm melody played on a human string instrument. It blended with the crystal's light, creating a moment of quiet enchantment. The Vroni felt tears in their eyes. Music and light united their cultures in an unspoken promise of friendship. Sala placed her hand over her heart, and Mirel closed her eyes to savor every note. Even Jaren, usually so logical, blinked away a tear. In that instant, they understood something deeper than technology, the human gift of emotion shared freely and without fear, as they prepared to return to the Arreth. Captain Sorlara gathered her team. "Today, we have seen kindness, wonder, and hope," she said, voice steady with emotion. Let us carry these gifts back to our people. Myril nodded, her mind alive with possibilities. Jaren tapped his datapad, already drafting reports filled with images of gardens, classrooms, and healing wands. Sala adjusted her comlink, ready to tell home of the children's laughter. The trailblazer waited to carry them back through the silent stars. As the hatch closed and the engines hummed once more, the Veroni delegation glanced through the window at the human battleship's glowing hull. They felt its warmth, even in the cold of Spaca, guiding light for both their worlds. And as the stars slipped past, each carried a simple truth in their hearts. When two species share their best, they create a future stronger than any weapon. Captain Sorlara sat in the briefing room of the HSS Pioneer, her fingers lightly tapping the edge of the holotable. Around her, human officers arranged glowing data panels that mapped planned joint missions of exploration and aid. She felt a swell of pride. These plans would carry Veroni and human ships together, two worlds scarred by war and famine. For the first time, we saw both fleets side by side on the same screen, symbols of hope rather than conflict. Xenotech officer Myril watched as human engineers and Veroni technicians compared notes on a new field medic device. A human physician demonstrated how the device traced wounds and released healing nanobots. Myril leaned forward, eyes bright, and asked detailed questions. The physician answered with gentle patience. When Myril finally tried the device herself, she marveled at how it could stitch torn metal as easily as it could mend flesh. She realized that technology's highest use was to protect life. Analyst Jaren stood by a holographic star map, plotting routes to a nearby system still recovering. From a long civil war, he explained Veroni navigation techniques, showing how gravitational anomalies could be used as stepping stones for faster travel. A human navigator listened intently, then suggested a modification that would save energy. Jaren's heart leaped. Two very different species, proud of their own methods, had found a way to blend them into something better. Communications. Chief Sala arranged for a cultural exchange event in the Pioneer's Central Hall. She placed Veroni crystal sculptures on one side and human art prints on the other. Later, humans would learn to carve crystal as the Veroni did, and Veroni would try their hand at human painting. Sala imagined the laughter and astonished gasps. When the two cultures mixed in color, form, and light, she believed that art could speak truths that words sometimes could not. That evening, Captain Sorlara invited a group of Veroni and human officers to share dinner beneath the Pioneer's observation dome. Stars glittered above them through the transparent ceiling. On the tables, dishes combined spices from Earth with Veroni nuts and fruits. Captain Reynolds, the human commanding officer, raised a glass of sweet nectar and proposed a toast. "New friends," he said, voice warm, "may our bond shine bright as these stars." Sorlara lifted her glass too, feeling tears prick her eyes at the simple power of unity. After dinner, Myril wandered to the edge of the dome. She found a small memorial pillar built by human crew, a smooth stone engraved with names of worlds helped by the Pioneer. Each name glowed softly under starlight. Myril bowed her head, thinking of her own homeworld and its struggles. She traced the letters with a fingertip. "We will add Veroni worlds here," she whispered. The thought filled her with purpose. Late that night, Captain Sorlara stood alone on the Pioneer's deck, looking out at the dark void between ships. The Aureth floated nearby, its lights a steady green against the black. She thought of how fear had been the first spark between their peoples, and how kindness had become the flame. She imagined the children on both sides growing up believing that aliens could be friends. A hopeful tear fell as she made a silent vow to carry this peace home, to ensure that no Veroni child ever feared the unknown again. As the two ships drifted in tandem through the silent stars, the crew slept, dreaming of tomorrow's journeys. They would explore new worlds, heal ancient wounds, and build a future where strength was measured by compassion. And somewhere between the human battleship and the Veroni cruiser, a new legend was already whispered. The data fleets chose friendship over fear, and in doing so, changed the fate of the galaxy. Captain Sorlara stood on the observation deck of the HSS Pioneer as the shuttle engines roared softly below. Beside her, Myril checked her data pad one last time. Today they would lead their first joint mission. To the war-scarred world of Callan's Reach, fields that once grew food lay cracked and dry. Cities stood half-ruined, their stones scorched by long battles. Yet Sorlara felt hope stir in her chest. Humans and Vroni would bring healing together. When the shuttle's ramp touched ground, a hush fell over the team. Myril inhaled the dusty air, tasting faint smells of ash and wildflowers that still clung to the wind. A human medic named Dr. Patel greeted them with a gentle bow. Her uniform's bright emblem of a rising sun promised renewal. "Welcome," she said softly. "Thank you for coming." Myril smiled, and in that moment she knew they were not strangers here, but partners. The small convoy moved toward a shattered farming village. Broken tractors lay half-buried in the red soil. Vroni engineers knelt beside human farmers, inspecting pump systems and irrigation lines. Duran stood at a control panel, guiding his holographic map to redirect water flow from a distant river. When he flipped the switch, thin streams of clear water surged into dried channels. Farmers cheered and rushed forward, scooping water to their mouths, tears shining on their cheeks. Even Jaren's usually calm face broke into a bright grin. Sala walked among the villagers, offering clean bandages and nutrition packets. A Vroni mother held out her sick child, eyes full of pleading. Sala knelt, lifted the child gently into her arms, and applied soothing care. The child's fever eased under the human healing gel, and soon she opened wide eyes and smiled. Sala felt warmth flood her heart. She handed the child back to her mother, who pressed Sala's hand to her forehead in gratitude. Sala's own tears came unbidden. In the center of the village square, Captain Sorlara and Commander Reynolds met with local leaders. A human translator spoke softly as the village elder bowed low. His face was lined with sorrow and resilience. He spoke of years of hunger and loss. Sorlara placed a firm hand on his shoulder and said, "You are not alone." The elder's eyes glistened. He placed a small wooden carving in Sorlara's palm, a gift of thanks. In her own tongue, she whispered, "We will rebuild together." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the team lit lanterns in the village square. Vroni crystal sculptures glowed alongside human paper lanterns, bathing faces in soft light. Children from both species chased each other between stalls of fresh fruit and clean water. A human musician played a gentle melody on a stringed instrument. While Vroni dancers moved with graceful precision, the music wove together to cultures, and everyone felt their hearts lift in harmony. Late that night, Myril walked the deserted fields under a sky bright with stars. She paused beside a lonely tractor half sunken in the ground. Gently, she placed her hand on its rusted frame and imagined the day when green shoots would rise again. She whispered a promise into the quiet. "We will bring life back here." Shooting star streaked overhead, and she felt it as a sign that their joint efforts would flourish. Back aboard the Pioneer, Captain Sorlara gathered her crew in the lounge. Images of smiling villagers and flowing water filled the hollow screen. She spoke with quiet pride. "Today we showed Callan's Reach our true strength." She looked around at human and Vroni faces alike. Not through weapons, but through hands that heal, minds that share, and hearts that care. They nodded in agreement, feeling the truth of her words ripple through them. As the two ships lifted off from Callan's Reach, the world below glimmered. With renewed promise, water channels snaked through the fields and lamps still shone in windows. For the first time in years, the land breathed. In the silent hum of their vessels, the crews of both species felt a shared glow of accomplishment. They had turned fear into friendship and fearsome power into gentle hope. Captain Sorlara looked to the stars ahead. Together, they would journey onward to new worlds in need. And as the Pioneer and Areth sailed side by side through the dark, their lights shone like beacons of a future where humanity and Vroni stood together stronger, and forever bound by compassion. Captain Sorlara floated gently in the zero-gravity lab of the Pioneer, watching human and Vroni scientists work side by side. Before them hovered a small probe, its sensors blinking as it scanned a nearby asteroid. The mission today was to test joint mining techniques so they could gather rare minerals without harming the environment. Captain Sorlara felt a thrill of pride at the sight. Two species united in curiosity rather than combat. Xenotech Officer Myrel studied the probe's live feed. She pointed out an unexpected crystal formation deep in the rock, its gleaming facets reflecting starlight. A human geologist, Dr. Hayes, leaned in and exclaimed softly, "Incredible." Together, Myrel and Dr. Hayes adjusted the probe's laser cutter to harvest a sample, careful to preserve the surrounding stone. Myrel's heart fluttered with excitement at each precise cut science unfolding like a gentle dance. On the observation deck, Jaran and Sala reviewed harvest data. Holographic charts displayed mineral purity and structural integrity. Jaran tapped a panel and smiled when the error rate dropped below 1%. Sala placed a comforting hand on his shoulder and whispered, "Well done." Jaran's usual reserve melted into a rare grin. He realized that true success came not from cold calculation alone, but from trust and teamwork. Below them, in the docking bay, engineers cleaned and refueled the Trailblazer shuttle that would carry samples back to the Areth. A Vroni mechanic showed human crew how to balance the shuttle's power core, while a human technician taught the Vroni crews to optimize coolant flow. The shuttle's engines purred when tested, proof that shared knowledge could yield stronger, safer designs. Captain Sorlara witnessed the moment with quiet joy. Later, in the central lounge, the entire mission team gathered around a long table. Silver trays held crystallized minerals, glinting under soft lights. Humans passed elegant trays of spiced fruit, while Vroni offered small crystal vials filled with purified water. Commander Reynolds raised his glass and said, "To discovery." Captain Sorlara responded, "To friendship." Glasses chimed, and laughter filled the hall, warm as the bonds they had forged. That evening, a human musician played a melody on a flute made of asteroid crystal. Its notes rang clear in the hush of the lab. Vroni dancers moved in graceful circles, their limbs flowing like living sculptures. Scientists clapped, swayed, and let themselves be carried by the music. Captain Sorlara closed her eyes, feeling tears of joy. Technology and art combined to celebrate their unity. As the day ended, Myrel walked alone through the lab's soft blue glow. She paused by the probe's cradle and gently touched its cool metal. She thought of her people back home, still wary of strangers. But here, she had seen kindness, respect, and shared wonder. She whispered a promise into the still air. "I will bring this hope to Vroni worlds." Finally, Sorlara returned to the observation deck. She looked out at the silent stars and saw the Areth glowing beside the Pioneer. Two ships, two peoples, moving together into the unknown. In her heart, she carried the memory of children's laughter, dancers' grace, and the first humming of a shared probe. She took a deep breath and said softly, "This is only the beginning." And as the stars watched in silence, she knew it was true. Captain Sorlara stood on the Pioneer's observation deck as a gentle green nebula drifted past the viewport. Behind her, the Vroni delegation prepared for the next chapter of their alliance, sharing knowledge with a remote research station orbiting a dying star. She felt a mixture of solemn duty and hopeful excitement. Today's mission would test not only their technology, but the strength of their friendship under the harshest conditions. Inside the planning chamber, Myrel traced the station's orbit on a holomap. The star's heat had weakened the station's hull, and its scientists struggled to maintain life support. Myrel looked at Dr. Patel, who nodded in understanding. "We must work quickly and carefully," Myrel said. "Every second of delay risks their lives." She tapped a command, and the route to the station lit up in pulsing lines of light. Jaran and a team of human engineers assembled in the shuttle bay. Beside the sparkling samples from Callan's Reach, they loaded specialized repair drones capable of withstanding extreme heat. Jaran's hands moved with practiced precision, placing each drone in its fitted cradle. As he worked, he thought of the station's researchers, people his age, so far from home and safety. He steeled himself to carry hope across the void. Sala gathered communications gear and a small translator device. She tested its link to the station's central hub, listening as the fragile signal crackled through. A faint voice replied, "Thank you for coming." Sala felt a shiver of empathy. "We will not fail you," she answered, her voice steady. She imagined the faces of the station crew, their tired eyes lighting at her words. When the small shuttle detached from the Pioneer, Captain Sorlara took the co-pilot's seat beside Commander Reyes. Both captains felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of unity. The shuttle's engines hummed as they swept toward the blazing star. Outside, the station glowed red-hot walls, glinting like molten metal. Sorlara gripped the armrest and watched as their destination grew to fill the viewport. Docking was tense. The station's docking bay doors had warped under heat, but the shuttle's adaptive hull seals molded to the gap. A hiss of air pressure signaled success, and the doors slid open with a groan. Inside, corridors glowed with emergency lamps. Human and Vroni crews moved side by side, carrying cooling units and repair tools. The air smelled of ionized metal and tired hope. In the station's control room, crew members blinked at the new arrivals. Among them was a young scientist named Lyra, her hair singed at the edges and her eyes bright with relief. "Forward," voice trembling. "You came." Sala kneeled to adjust her translator and placed a reassuring hand on Lyra's arm. "We will not let you down," she said. Lyra's shoulders relaxed and tears sparkled like starlight. Myril and Dr. Hayes deployed the repair drones into the station's outer hull. Holographic screens showed tiny robotic arms, sealing cracks and reinforcing beams. The star's energy flared dangerously close, but the drones held firm. Myril watched. Each progress bar as a sign that life support would survive. She felt her breath catch as the final seal locked into place. Deep inside the station, Jaren and engineers restored the cooling core. Pipes that had boiled dry were flushed with coolant drawn from the Pioneer. Jaren guided each flow with calm confidence. As temperatures dropped, the station's alarms ceased their shrill warning. The crew cheered, voices echoing in the metal corridor. Jaren allowed himself a rare smile of triumph. Back on the observation deck of the Pioneer, Captain Sorlara and Commander Reyes watched as the station's lights brightened in a steady glow. The nebula's green haze framed the scene like a living painting. Sorlara placed a hand over her. "Heart, we saved them," she whispered. Reyes nodded. "Together," he replied. In that moment, two captains from different worlds stood united, knowing their bond had grown stronger than any challenge the cosmos could present. Captain Sorlara stood once more on the Pioneer's observation deck. Watching as the repaired station shone brightly against the nebula's soft glow, she felt a quiet pride bloom in her chest. Around her, human and Vroni officers gathered, their faces lit by light both starborn and hard-earned. No words were needed. In that shared silence, they understood what they had accomplished together. Hope had triumphed over despair, and a new chapter was opening for both their peoples. Below in the station's central hall, Commander Reyes and Captain Sorlara joined Lyra, the young scientist they had saved, for a small ceremony. A polished metal plaque bore the names of every human and Vroni crew member who had taken part in the rescue. Lyra's voice trembled as she delivered the dedication. For unity, for life, for the promise of tomorrow. Tears glittered in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. Each name on that plaque was a testament to cooperation and courage. In the shipyards of Callan's Reach, a similar scene played out. There, Jaren and Sareth oversaw the first joint construction of a relief habitat. Vroni engineers molded crystal-reinforced panels while human builders attached climate regulators. Every sound of hammer and chisel echoed around them like a heartbeat. The structure rose swiftly, and soon its walls stood ready to shelter refugees with warmth and dignity. Jaren paused to admire the blend of crystal and stelin, architectural symbol of their shared future. Meanwhile, Myril sat in the research wing of the Pioneer, surrounded by glass chambers of vibrant life. She and Dr. Hayes had begun a new project combining Vroni bioluminescent spores with human seed stock to create plants that could signal distress on remote worlds. As a single glowing sprout unfurled under her gentle touch, Myril felt a surge of wonder. Science, she realized, could be a language even more powerful than words. It could speak of life, resilience, and the bond between species. In a quiet corner of the Pioneers' Lounge, Sala organized the first cultural exchange festival. Tables curved under displays of human paintings and Vroni crystal sculptures. Soft music drifted through the air, human string melodies mingling with the rhythmic hum of Vroni wind chimes. Crew members wandered through, marveling at each other's art. A human diplomat picked up a delicate crystal carving and turned it slowly, discovering patterns that reminded him of home. Sala's eyes shone as she watched strangers become friends. In a single room, that evening, under a dome of living stars, humans and Vroni shared stories and songs. Captain Sorlara recounted the first moment she saw the human battleship on her scanners, her voice soft with memory. Commander Reyes spoke of the tea rituals that had broken the ice. Lyra described her fears on the dying station, then laughter as she realized she was not alone. Round them, people leaned forward, listening, nodding, and sometimes wiping a gentle tear. In stories, they found understanding. As the festival ended, a human child offered a small painted stone to a Vroni child. The Vroni child's antennae twitched in delight as she cradled the gift. Nearby, Jaren and a human navigator plotted new routes to uncharted systems. Each plotted line on the holomap represented a promise. They would explore together, learn together, and protect each other. The galaxy felt smaller, friendlier, full of possibilities rather than threats. Back on the observation deck, Captain Sorlara and Commander Reyes watched the two ships drift side by side once more. Sorlara turned to Reyes and smiled. "We began with scans and fear," she said, "and now we travel with trust and hope." Reyes nodded. "May our next steps be guided by the best in both our peoples." Together they looked ahead, toward new missions of aid, discovery, and shared wonder. In the silent stars beyond, the bright nebula continued its slow dance, whispered of change, of growth, of life that refuses to fade. And between the Pioneer and the Aureth, the light of a new alliance shone steadily, a beacon for all who dreamed of a future where strength was measured not by weapons, but by compassion, curiosity, and the courage to reach out a hand in friendship. Captain Sorlara stood on the bridge of the Pioneer as the twin suns of the Varen system rose together, painting the viewport in warm gold and soft rose. Behind her, the Aureth floated in perfect alignment, its lights still aglow from their shared journey. Today marked the anniversary of First Contact, a day when fear had given way to friendship, and two fleets became one community. Sorlara felt her heart swell with gratitude as she prepared to send a final message of thanks. In the communications bay, Sala adjusted the frequencies, ensuring that every vessel across both fleets would hear their words. Around her, human and Vroni officers settled into chairs, anticipation shining on their faces. Sala looked at the simple translator device clipped to her uniform. It had carried laughter, hope, and tears across the void, and the channel opened. "People of Vroni and people of Earth," Captain Sorlara began, her voice steady but warm. "1 year ago today, we scanned a battleship and feared the unknown. Today, we stand together under these twin suns, not as strangers, but as partners." Behind her, the golden light reflected off her uniform. She paused, letting her gaze sweep over the gathered crews. Myril stood beside her. She remembered the day she first decrypted the human logs, the tea breaks and garden notes that had shown her gentle hearts behind mighty technology. She thought of how that single moment of understanding had shaped everything that followed. Her hand rested on the console, and she felt its cool surface steady her nerves. Sala continued, "In the past year, we have healed broken worlds, shared our cultures, and crafted new technologies that blend our strengths." A holoscreen flickered to life above the bridge, showing images from each mission, water rushing through Callan's reach. The glowing repair drones on the dying station, joint mining probes uncovering shimmering crystals. Every frame spoke of cooperation. Jaren watched the images with quiet pride. He remembered charting wormhole trails and teaching human navigators his people's methods. He had seen how two ways of thinking could merge into something greater. He tapped a final image. Onto the screen, the children Human and Vroni playing together under paper lanterns and crystal sculptures. Sala's voice grew soft with emotion. We learned that courage is not only the power to fight, but the strength to care. We discovered that curiosity can bridge worlds, and kindness can forge alliances stronger than steel. She glanced at Commander Reyes, who offered her a small, encouraging nod. Together, they had turned a chance scan into a legend. Captain Sorlara lifted her hand. Let us honor this day by renewing our promise to explore the stars together, to aid every world in need, and to cherish the bond we have formed. May our fleet sail forward in peace, guided by compassion and wonder. Her words echoed through the ships, carried by light and space. As the message ended, the bridge erupted in quiet applause. Humans and Vroni alike rose to their feet, faces shining. Commander Reyes stepped forward to clasp Sorlara's arm in a gesture of friendship. Their smiles spoke without words of mutual respect and shared destiny. Later, Sorlara walked the corridor, connecting the Pioneer and the Areth. Along the walls, crew members had placed gifts, human paintings in bright colors and Vroni crystal carvings glowing softly. Each gift was a token of thanks, a piece of heart shared. She paused before one displayed image of the human battleship scanned so long ago, now memorialized as a symbol of unity. Myril joined her and placed a gentle hand on the glass. We have come far, she said, voice filled with wonder. Sala and Jaren appeared behind them, carrying trays of fruit and crystal vials of purified water, simple feast to mark the day. They shared smiles and quiet laughter as they made their way to the observation deck. There, under the twin suns, humans and Vroni gathered for a ceremonial meal. They sat side by side at long tables, passing dishes that combined spices and nuts, teas and sweet nectars. The sun's light danced on glass and alloy, turning every surface to glowing gold. Children ran between tables, their laughter like music. Captain Sorlara raised her cup of amber tea and looked around, faces bright with hope, hands reaching across cultures, hearts open to friendship. This was her vision made real. She took a careful sip, savoring the warmth and sweetness, and felt tears rise unbidden. She thought of her people back home, and of how this alliance would one day bring peace to distant worlds. As the suns climbed higher, marking the new day, Sorlara spoke one last time. To our past, for teaching us caution. To our present, for showing us unity. To our future, for giving us endless horizons. Together, we sail into tomorrow. Glasses chimed, voices cheered, and in that brilliant light, two species celebrated a shared destiny. And so, beneath the twin suns of Varan, the legend of First Contact found its final chapter, a promise fulfilled, future begun, and a tribute to the power of open hands and open hearts. In the silent cosmos beyond, their joined ships glowed, like beacons proof that when fear is replaced by understanding, the universe itself can become home.